Hi everybody, I'm Josh Skinner for WithJosh.com, and next to me is one of my childhood heroes, Marc Summers. Marc Summers, thank you so much for being on our website.
I'm glad anybody even remembers, Josh, so thank you.
Oh, you've had an amazing career so far, and I don't want to just say had. You're in the middle of an amazing career. But before we talk about Double Dare and What Would You Do and the Food Network's Unwrapped, take me to the beginning. Why the entertainment industry?
I came out of the womb knowing that that's what I wanted to do. I grew up in Indianapolis, and how do you get in front of people was the first question. So there was a kid down the street, his name was David Lawton, and he did magic. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, this is cool. So he taught me magic, and then in junior high there was a magic club. And it gave me a reason to stand in front of an audience and perform. So I started off as a magician. Then I got an opportunity to be a disc jockey when I was 15 years old. So I did weekends from 6 to 11 on a station in Elwood, Indiana called WBMP. And when I left, because I had transportation problems, Dave Letterman took my place, which was which was because he was from Indianapolis as well. And I did local theater. There was one place in Indianapolis that had variety, and I would take the bus on Saturdays down to this sleazy newspaper stand and next to porn theaters and buy variety and read it from cover to cover, hoping I could get an audition someday for something on Broadway. And we had a theater group called Footlight Musical, so I auditioned and I did, Bye Bye Birdie and all the things that you do in local theater. And I would do anything just to get on stage. And so I went to college in Boston and realized what I didn't know about the entertainment industry. I had this corny magic act and this corny stand-up comedy act. And guys from New York laughed at me, but not for the right reasons. They thought I was just like super old school. And so I had to realize that I needed to learn my craft. Got rid of college in 2 years and moved to Los Angeles and started working at a place called the Magic Castle.
I love the Magic Castle.
Really?
Yeah, I love it.
And so I got in there and I worked there for 10 or 12 years. Then I started at the Comedy Store. Most people don't know I was a stand-up comic. I started at the Comedy Store in 1976 with Dave Letterman and Robin Williams and Gary Shandling and Jay Leno. Worked the Improv, did college tours as a stand-up, and from there started doing warm-ups on TV shows. I did Alice and Soap and Star Search and What's Happening Now and Our Magazine and Webster, and I was making a great living. I was making 6 figures doing warm-ups long before anybody knew who I was, but it was a road to nowhere, I thought. How do I get to the big time? How do I get on television where people know who I am instead of behind the scenes?
Now, during this time, were you watching Robin Williams and Jay Leno, all these people have huge success?
Huge, and I knew I was never going to be as good as them. I just
Why would you say that?
Tell you why. Because they were funny, and I was okay. I didn't come up from some lower, middle class neighborhood or grow up in Brooklyn. I grew up in a, upper middle class Jewish family in Indianapolis, Indiana. My life was actually really good. So the kind of stuff I talked about in my act was okay. I was trying to be David Brenner, observational humorist, and I was just okay. And I realized I was good at being me. I was good at being a host. I couldn't act, I couldn't sing, I couldn't dance, but I could be Marc Summers. And so I started to audition to be a host, but when I started doing that, it was Bob Barker and Tom Kennedy and Gene Rayburn and guys who were like older than my father. And I was a young kid who looked younger than I was at the time, and they kept telling me in auditions, come back when you have gray hair and wrinkles, you're too young to host shows.
Ouch.
So now, partially because of me and the success I had on Nickelodeon, it's all changed. They don't want old people now. They want a phone ring. They want, we can dance a little here with Calypso music until it stops. And so they want, let's face it, they want Ryan Seacrest and people that age and younger, or they want somebody with lots of tattoos or lots of piercings. And our industry is the only industry where the more experience you have, the less they want you. And so the idea of a good host, Tom Chills wrote a column recently in the Washington Post, that enough people have been born since Johnny Carson went off the air that they don't remember what a good host is. I mean, Seacrest is a good host, Tom Bergeron's a good host, and then it becomes, people who are designers or, matchmakers and stuff like that because of reality TV. So the whole industry is turned upside down. I've just given you a 10-minute answer to one question. And
well, take me to your audition for Double Dare. What was that like?
I was 34 years old, had auditioned a million times, nobody would hire me. And they were looking for Originally they hired, they were looking at Soupy Sales, and they went, oh, he's too old. And they had actually auditioned Dana Carvey.
No.
And Dana got the job. And then the same week got offered Saturday Night Live, and he took that. They had auditioned 1,200 people in New York and came to LA. I was the first guy to audition, and I felt that I nailed it. So
Why? Why did you feel that?
I just felt comfortable. I had been around game shows. I was a game show writer.
Mm-hmm.
My first job was Truth or Consequences, working with Bob Barker. So for 10 years, I'd been around the game show genre, and I knew what to do. And I had done some office run-throughs as a host. So I just felt really comfortable going in there and, telling the people, answering questions. If you're not, you're going to have to take the physical challenge, and here's what we want to do. And so I just felt natural doing it. And I got out and I called my agent from a payphone, because I don't think cell phones existed at the time. And I said, I nailed this. And he went, no, you don't. I have like 10 clients going. And he hung up on me. And so he gets a call back for me like that same week. And I go and do a second call back. And I went, okay, man, this is mine. And he said, no, there's other clients that keep getting called back. And finally, I knew they were going to start shooting in September. It was the week before Labor Day, 1986, and they hadn't called me. And I felt like this was my job. So whenever I went to an audition, I always got the name of the exec producer or the casting director and found their phone number. So the guy's name was Mike Klinghoffer in New York. And I called him. I said, Mr. Klinghoffer, it's Marc Summers. Have you made a decision yet on Double Dare? And he said, well, it's down to you and one other guy. And I said, really? Well, what's the problem? He says, well, we don't know if you're good with kids, because when we did the audition, they had us play the part with adults.
Mm.
So I said, well, I did magic shows and I really like kids. And he said, that's not good enough. So I suggested, why don't you fly me and this other host to New York, put us in a room with kids, run the show, and let the best man win. And he said, it's a good idea. Let me call you back. Called me back in a half hour and said, what are you doing Labor Day weekend? I said, flying to New York. He said, yes. So they flew us both to New York, and we both did the show. I did it first, then he had me leave. This other person, to this day, I don't know who it is, came in an audition. And they called me 2 days later and they said, you got it. And I said, after 1,200 people in New York and 1,000 in LA, why did I get the job? And they said, at the end of the other audition, the kid looked at the camera and said, do you want me to do anything else? And I looked at the camera and said, we'll be back with more Double Dare right after this. And because I threw it to commercial,
Wow.
they thought that was more professional than going, you want me to do something else? Which is why I got the job, and it changed my life.
Now, you filmed for 9 years, almost 10 years?
86 to 94 we
Okay.
shot solidly, and then we did specials from like 94 to 96.
And over 500 episodes.
525 half hours of Double Dare, yes.
Was there ever a moment where you just thought, I'm over the show?
No, I always had a good time doing it. It was always fun. I mean, it was, in its purest form with the kids, probably the most fun. When the adults got involved in Family Double Dare, it got a little intense when we were giving away cars, and a kid would miss that last flag with 2 seconds left, and we would have parents grabbing kids by their throat and going, I can't believe you screwed that up, and we'd have to separate them. So that got a little dangerous. But I never, and interestingly enough, as we sit here on, the 10th of September, I just left a meeting about doing a tour for the 25th anniversary of Double Dare, taking it back out on the road. And so we're having conversations about perhaps going out and doing theaters and arenas again. So who knew?
Now, I want to ask you about the disgusting food that you had to deal with on that show. What was that like? I mean, you had dog food, you had baked beans, you had what looked like toothpaste, but I'm sure it wasn't. What was that like?
Well, you remember,
it was kind of nasty.
You mentioned the dog food. They actually did, in a physical challenge, use dog food once, and there's no more disgusting smell than when you open up a can of dog food. And I literally had to leave the set one day. I was like gagging. It was so bad. I couldn't even do the physical challenge. You had to change it. Most of the stuff, everything was a base of vanilla pudding, applesauce, green food coloring, oatmeal. The problem was, when we first started with the tank, we would fill it with first styrofoam balls or whatever, and then they wanted to get cute and clever. So once they filled it with 4,000 pounds of baked beans. And the first day was okay, but when you came to the studio the second and third day, it started to smell a little ripe. So think about the worst smell in a school cafeteria. At the end of 6 weeks of shooting Double Dare, that's pretty much what it smelled like. So people would break out in rashes, people who clean the set, because food shouldn't sit out under hot lights for days at a time.
Right.
And so we would have like dermatologists come on and try and treat people for breaking out with stuff. Pretty strange stuff. But you know what? It was just fun. It was so stupid when you think about I was throwing green liquids at 11-year-olds, and they were sending me a check at the end of the week. I mean, I would have done it for free, but it was just so much fun.